So, you've got that dreaded check engine light staring you in the face, and you're wondering what your car is really trying to tell you. Well, today, we're going to crack the code on a very common one, P0193. Let's jump right in.
You're just driving along, minding your own business, and then, bam, the check engine light pops on. You get the code scanned, and it comes back P0193. Now, that might sound like a bunch of gibberish, but trust me, it's a very specific message. The real question is, what exactly is your car trying to tell you?
All right, first things first, let's decode this thing. What does P0193 actually stand for?
Okay, the official technical name is Fuel Rail Pressure Sensor Circuit High Input. I know, it's a bit of a mouthful, but don't let that intimidate you. The most important words in that whole phrase are right at the end, Circuit High Input. That's our biggest clue, and it's pointing us straight towards an electrical issue, not necessarily a fuel issue.
So to put it in plain English, your car's brain, the Powertrain Control Module, or PCM, is getting a really weird signal. See, sensors like this one send a voltage signal that goes up and down with the pressure. But with a P0193, the PCM is getting a signal that is just screaming. It's so high that it's outside the normal range, and the computer knows it's an impossible reading.
You know, a great way to think about this is like a blood pressure cuff, but for your engine. The fuel rail pressure sensor does basically the same job for your fuel system. But a P0193 code doesn't just mean high pressure. It means the cuff itself is malfunctioning, sending a frantic, off-the-charts panic signal that the computer just knows can't be real.
So, the computer sees this error code, but what are you going to see and feel from the driver's seat? Let's talk about the real-world symptoms.
Well, obviously you've got the check engine light, but beyond that, you might feel your engine hesitate, run really rough, or maybe even stall out on you. And why does this happen? Because the computer's getting bad data. It has no idea how much fuel to deliver. This can cause poor acceleration, you might see black smoke from the exhaust, and sometimes your vehicle will go into a protective limp mode to prevent any serious damage.
We've seen the symptoms, but what's the actual root cause? This is where the detective work begins. We need to line up the usual suspects to figure out what's really going on under the hood.
Now, this is really crucial. You want to work from most likely to least likely. And notice what's at the top of the list? The sensor itself has failed, or there's a problem with the wiring and connector. The top two suspects are electrical. Way down the list are the mechanical things, like a bad regulator or fuel pump. That's why we always check the circuit first.
And this is a point I really want to drive home. You can't just assume it's the sensor. A short circuit, a frayed wire, a corroded connector, any of that can perfectly mimic a failed sensor. The computer only sees the bad signal. It doesn't know where it's coming from. That's why you have to test before you start replacing parts.
Which brings us to the most important part, the diagnosis. You've got to be systematic. Finding the true cause requires a step-by-step process.
So, you start with the simple stuff. Just use your eyes. Do a visual inspection of the wiring. See any obvious damage, any chafing, any corrosion? Next, you hook up a scan tool and watch the live data. Is that voltage stuck at 5 volts, even with the engine off? That's a huge red flag. Then, it's time to break out the multimeter to test the circuit itself for shorts. And finally, to be absolutely sure, you can hook up a mechanical pressure gauge. That will tell you if there's actually high fuel pressure, which points you in a totally different direction. Okay, once you found the fault, the last step is the fix. And it's critical that the fix matches the diagnosis you just made.
This table really connects all the dots. If you found a short circuit, you have to repair the wiring harness. A new sensor isn't going to fix a bad wire. If the sensor itself failed your tests, then yes, replacing it is the answer. And, in that rare case where you find genuine high pressure, well, the problem isn't the sensor. You need to look at the fuel pressure regulator or the pump.
So, look, if you only remember one thing from all this, let it be this. P0193, with its circuit high input description, is almost always telling you about an electrical problem. The issue is with the signal, not necessarily the fuel pressure. Just knowing that is key to avoiding a lot of unnecessary and expensive repairs.
So there you have it. You understand the code, you know the symptoms, and you have the diagnostic path. The mystery of P0193 isn't so mysterious after all, right? The only question left is, are you ready to crack the case?